Hello folks! So I've had quite a few people ask me about my UI and about any kind of add-ons that I use, and rather than going individual, I figured I'd make a video, and I figured I'd combine both of those questions into just one, hopefully not too long video. So I'll be going through my add-ons, which ones I use, why I use them, and then my general UI setup, and my kind of justifications and recommendations for any aspect of my UI. I won't be going through settings, because that would make this video absurdly long, but I'll be going through general tips. So looking first at my add-ons, we start with Bartender 4, which I am pretty sure everyone has heard of. Bartender is an add-on that overhauls your action bars, and it allows you to completely customize the size, shape, scale, positioning, everything of all of your bars, gives you many more bars to access, and also lets you tweak around with your, micro menu, your bag bars, all of that stuff. I would recommend Bartender to everyone, even if you don't plan on, going for some crazy setup. I mean, I think mine is relatively plain and simple. It's just useful to have that customization available to you. After Bartender, we have Details. You can go for whatever add-on you like for DPS or healing tracking. I would recommend Details because it's by far the most intense and customizable and widely agreed to be the most accurate, because obviously there's going to be discrepancies in which add-on you use. Details is down here. It's really customizable, which is good, but also obviously comes with the downside that if we open up the options panel here, there are a lot of things to change all around here. But once you've got it set up, I love it. It gives you so much more information. Just by clicking this open, I can see that I last hit a turnip punching bag, and I can see the average of every hit that I'm doing, my crit chances on all of them, the DPS I'm gaining from one specific ability, all that stuff. And you can also compare with other people, which is great. So if, let's say I'm playing Mistweaver, and there's another Mistweaver in the group, I can compare my casts with theirs and see how we're both performing compared to each other. So Details is great for that. You can use any add-on you like, but I would recommend that one. After Details, and all of its many plugins, we have Exhaustus Raid Tools. Now, I will preface this by saying ERT is much better for raid leaders. A lot of its function is designed for those who are running raids themselves. But it can still be useful for those who really want some extra information. Now, if we change this here, this is ERT, so this is specifically the raid cooldown section. If I put it into test mode, it'll fill it with a whole bunch of examples. So you can choose which spells you want to appear there, and then you can track not only your cooldowns, but the cooldowns of other members of your group, which can be super useful. So as a healer, I really like it because I'm able to track my co-healers' cooldowns. I know that I don't have to waste revival on this next damage because our Disc Priest has Light's Wrath. Well, not anymore, but any kind of cooldowns that they have, I can see them there. I then have tank cooldowns set up and DPS cooldowns, so maybe any Innovates, or Bloodlust, or Darkness on a Demon Hunter. If you're just a DPSer, this can still be useful for you. You can track other people's interrupt cooldowns, so if you know there's some kind of loose interrupt rotation, you can be looking for when the rogue's interrupt goes off and then you know yours is next. That can be really useful. It also allows battle res timers, so you can see how long, I usually have this about here, so you can see when the next battle res will be available, how many charges we have, and so on. Beyond that, ERT has an absolute bucket load of features, but they are mostly for raid leaders. Stuff like here that will allow me to auto-promote someone, so when I create a raid, if I happen to invite Owen, for example, it will automatically make him assistant if I set that up. You can also set up, invites automatic for guild members. It automatically changes raid difficulty, change how you place marks down. You can track bonus loot, so here we can see that, Nick rolled an Agrimar but didn't get anything, but then Owen got Highfather's Machinations, track raid attendant, it does everything. But again, most of this I wouldn't recommend unless you're a raid leader, which I hope you're not, because that means I've lost my job. After ERT, we have Extended Transmog UI, which is such a basic add-on, but we all know what I'm like with Transmog. It makes this screen a lot bigger, especially useful if you're trying to transmog like a Tauren or a Troll when they do that ridiculous stand-up animation and their head ends up like out here over past the screen. This just gives a much wider window, more flexibility to be able to see what you're doing and see all angles of your character in this gorgeous slot log. After the Translog UI, we have Garrison Mission Manager. Nice and simple one. When you go to your order hall, instead of having to drag champions in, it will just allow you to click once and it will fill the mission for you. After that we have GTFO. This is the one add-on, perhaps outside of weak orders, that I wish every single raider would have. GTFO, get the fuck out, is what it stands for those who are beautiful and innocent, will play extremely annoying noises if you are stood in things that you shouldn't be, or if you're generally not playing correctly. So if you're stood in something that's, you know, like just general fire, if you're stood in stuff you shouldn't be, you'll hear ticking every time you take damage. If maybe you failed to get out of something, so there's a cone that you're supposed to dodge, but you didn't, you'll hear that. And if you clip someone with, you know, a spell that you were supposed to run out of the raid so you didn't hit people, you'll hear that. They're really useful because they can't really be ignored. It's really easy to miss your health ticking down when you're focusing on DPSing and you think you're out of the fire. GTFO makes sure that you know that you're not, and it makes you a much better raider in general, because you're able to focus on the important things and listen for the sounds for when you shouldn't be in something. I would really recommend GTFO to everyone. After that we have Handy Notes, which I'm not currently running. It's just a map tracking tool, really useful for getting treasures in Draenor with this one, or the Summer Festival bonfires. Immersion is just a quest changing thing. Move Anything is an add-on that, to the surprise of everyone I'm sure, will let you move anything, and oh god, do I mean anything. If we have a look here, for example, my objectives window, so you'll see my quests here. Usually there'd be a gap, but they're actually flush against the side. My buffs, are a little bit up to the right here. My debuffs are a little bit further out to the left than usual. If I was to get on a multi-person mount, the little bit for it is down here. And I've just kind of changed all the little bits like that along the way. My cast bar, for example, is up here, and that is basically what Move Anything does. I'd really recommend getting it because it allows you to customize your UI completely without having to kind of compromise. You know, if your cast bar's getting in the way, or if... oh, loud horn. If the quest thing is too far out and it's causing problems, Move Anything will allow you to override that. Full disclosure, it may require some tweaks in the text settings. It does appear that Move Anything isn't being updated anymore, so just be warned. If you get that, you might have to go hunting for a fix to get rid of some of the errors, but I've had it for probably over a year now, and I would really recommend it. The one warning being that you do start to move everything just a little bit to the left to try and make it all nice and tidy. After Move Anything, we have Raider IO, which is great if you're doing Mythic Plus. If you are, then you probably already know what that is. Then we have Shadowed Unit Frames, which is what handles all of my unit frames. So you'll see my group frames over here. Harry has volunteered to be in a group with me. And then here, and target, and target, target. SUF is brilliant. I find it's really smooth, really streamlined, and I really like the customizability of it. You can change everything about every single bar, where the text goes, what the text is, where the buffs go, where the debuffs go, all of that stuff. It's quite hard to customize. It did take me a couple of hours to get these set up how I liked them, and I would say, you know, every day or two after getting it set up, I still had to make changes, but if you want something that's really smooth for unit frames, I would recommend it. It's worth putting the time in. Moving on, after Shadowed Unit Frames, we have Threat Plates, which used to be Tidy Plates, for those who are familiar with it, and I will fly down to see some mobs so that we can see what Threat Plates does. Ban Lu will give his contribution. This little nameplate above here, that's Threat Plates. It seems relatively simple now, because it is, really, but it will show anything above that's useful. So if I was to go and hit this, you'll see it now has the Mystic Touch debuff above it, and even if I untarget it and go elsewhere, that will stay there. So it can be really useful if you... I'm in Mistweaver, whoops, there we go. If you are a multi-dotting class, for example, it will allow you to track your dots without needing to tab target through people. The most amazing feature of it, in my opinion, if you're on a quest and a mob is relevant for that quest, you know, you need to kill it or loot it or whatever, the Tidy Plates will put an exclamation mark above its head. No more need to hover over and check the tooltip. It's all there. You can just see an exclamation mark. Cool, I'll go kill that mob. So Tidy Plates is really nice. One thing I love about Tidy Plates as well, I have not customized it. This is how it comes default. I've changed no settings. So if you like how this looks, install it and you're done, you're set to go. It's a really easy one. Weak Orders 2, I would imagine by now people are aware of, because it is all I talk about. And last couple of add-ons, so DBM, everyone knows, and then World Quest Tracker here just lets me track all the world quests in all the zones without having to go in and mouse over them and all that. So that's mostly it for my add-ons, which I think are relatively simple and quite few, to be honest. I don't think I have as many as most people. Now, the other thing people ask about is my UI in general, so my weak auras and my raid frames. I actually use standard Blizzard raid frames. I don't use any kind of healing add-ons, I don't use any raid frame alterations. I will happily go in and show you my settings. That's it. That is all I've done to change my raid frames right there. As you can see, I'm in a group with Harry now. It's just normal. It would fill out to the side here, and my raid frames usually fill up this little box here, just above my spells and just below my cast bar. If I was to open up my weak auras, you'll see all of them here. So we have my main cooldowns here, and anything that's really important in the middle. So I'm in Mystery of the Spec at the minute, and I'm going to try and move away from all of these mobs. I keep my cooldowns here, because they're at an easy glance, and the middle is generally where I'm looking. So in terms of justifications for UI, a lot of people will make a UI and just kind of put things wherever, but I really like to think out where things belong in my UI and where I'm going to be looking. If I'm in the middle of combat, as a healer, I'm going to be looking at my raid frames, and I will be glancing up to look at my feet and make sure I'm positioned correctly. I'm never really going to be looking up over here, or at my buffs bar, or any of that. So I try and keep all of my information in the gaps between where my eyes need to move. There's never really a reason. As a monk, I'm going to be in melee, so the boss is probably going to be about here. There's never a reason for my eyes to go above this part of my screen. There's no reason for them to go to the left, because my raid frames are down here and I don't need to look over here, and the same for all the sides around. That kind of reduces my screen, as far as I care, to this little box here. We've got my main bar, which you'll see is larger than the others, because these are my most important spells, and then up and to my character. That's it. So I try and keep my entire screen here. My cooldowns are off here, and as I said, the main things are here. So I will have any kind of important spells that I need to cast right now here, and anything that I want to know. So I want to know when Revival's on cooldown or when it's available, but I don't need to know it immediately in the middle of my screen. So my weak auras are always set up via importance. And if I click that one, that would go away usually. And then in terms of raid frames, in terms of healing, I use macros entirely, mouse over macros. So those who want to get into healing, or even who want to just sort of improve their general play, macros can be really good. This is a standard mouse over macro. There are multiple ways of doing it, so if you look online or you've done it a different way, it's fine. There's loads of different commands that you can put in these brackets to have it happen. But this, so if we use this example, show tooltip enveloping mist, that just means when I mouse over this, this is actually a macro, but it's showing the tooltip as if it was the normal spell. And then cast, target, mouse over, if one exists. So that means when I go to cast this spell, if I am mousing over a target, so if Harry was in range when I'm mousing over him, it would cast on him. Otherwise, which is this little semicolon here, just cast enveloping mist normally. So if I mouse over Harry here, if he was in range it would cast on him, but he's not, so it casts it standard just on myself. And it's up there now. And that's pretty much it for my UI. I have all those add-ons that I went through, my weak auras in a nice little bit, and everything I could ever need in this one little box. One last thing I will show people is my DBM times, because quite often I find that people do use DBM, which, good, but they just leave it default. DBM has a lot of settings, which can be quite daunting, but you really do want them to be somewhere that's useful. So I have my up-and-coming, but not soon, DBM trackers here. So this will just fill up down the side here. Any that become important, or are happening in a few seconds, will grow and shift up to here. And that kind of follows the same philosophy there. They're not taking... There we go. They're not taking space from my weak auras. They're going to be just above them, but they're still only a short glance away from anything else that I would be looking at during combat. I'm not having to glance over to the side, it's nice and clear, and it's coming up right where I want it to. And that pretty much covers everything for my UI and all of my add-ons. So for those who are curious, I hope that's helpful, and I hope that was what you were looking for. And for those who just happen to watch anyway, I hope maybe you've had some ideas about how to change your own UI. So, see you folks.